In 1324, a man walked through Cairo and accidentally destroyed its economy. Not through war, not through conquest, not through any act of hostility. By being too generous, he gave away so much gold to the poor people he passed on the street. So much gold to every official, every merchant, every beggaro crossed his path, that the value of gold in Egypt collapsed overnight. Prices spiraled. Markets destabilized. The Egyptian economy took 12 years to recover from a single man passing through on his way to prayer. That man was Mansa Musa, emperor of the Mali Empire, ruler of more gold than any human being had ever controlled in the history of the world. Today, Elon Musk is worth approximately $300 billion. Time magazine tried to calculate Mansa Musa's wealth in modern terms and gave up. Their conclusion: there is no way to put an accurate number on what he had. Some estimates suggest $400 billion. Others suggest the number is so large that our current financial vocabulary does not have a word for it. This is his story, and it is one of the most extraordinary stories in the history of the world, hiding in plain sight for 700 years. In the 14th century, while Europe was being decimated, the Black Death, while European nations were tearing themselves apart in civil wars, while famine and plague were reducing the continent to desperate survival, on the other side of the Sahara Desert, something extraordinary was happening. The Mali Empire was flourishing, stretching from the Atlantic coast in the west to the trading hub of Timbuktu in the east, covering territory that today encompasses Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Niger, and beyond. The Mali Empire was the wealthiest civilization on the face of the earth, and the reason was simple. It sat on top of the world's most productive gold fields. 3 major gold fields, Bambouk, Bior, and the fields between modern Ivory Coast and Ghana, were producing gold in quantities that the rest of the world could barely comprehend. Every ounce of gold mined, a percentage went direct line to the emperor. Every trade route that passed through Mali's territory, taxed. Salt from the north, gold from the south, ivory, spices, silk, everything moving through West Africa moved through Mali, and Mali took its share. For decades, this wealth had been accumulating in a capital city called Niamey, largely unknown to the outside world. Europe did not know Mali existed. The Middle East had heard rumors. North Africa had traded with it, but even they had not fully grasped what was sitting on the other side of the desert. Then in 1312, a man came to the throne who would change that permanently. His name was Musa. He had not expected to be emperor. His predecessor, Abu Bakr II, had become obsessed with a question that haunted him: what lay beyond the Atlantic Ocean? He assembled a fleet of 2,000 canoes and sailed west into the unknown. He was never seen again, and Musa, who had served as his deputy, inherited the greatest empire on earth. He had no idea what he was about to do with it. Mansa Musa was a devout Muslim, and as a devout Muslim, he had one obligation that he had not yet fulfilled: the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. The journey every Muslim has the means is required to make at least once in their lifetime. For most people, the Hajj is a deeply personal journey, an act of faith, a spiritual undertaking. Mansa Musa approached this way only the richest man in the history of the world could. He spent 12 years preparing, 12 years gathering resource from across the empire, 12 years assembling what would become its single most spectacular approaches in human history. By the time he was ready to leave, his caravan numbered 60,000 people. 60,000, 8,000 courtiers, 12,000 personal servants, each one dressed in Persian silk and carrying a golden staff, soldiers, officials, physicians, poets, musicians, and 80 camels, each one carrying between 50 and 300 pounds of pure gold dust. When the caravan stopped at night, it was, according to one Arab historian, like an entire city decamping in the desert. They carried with them a mobile mosque, assembled each For days so, the emperor could perform his prayers in a house of worship wherever the road took him. The total gold carried on this journey, estimated by historians at 18 tons. 18 tons of gold. Walking across Africa, the world had never seen anything like it. And the world was about to find out exactly what happens when that much wealth moves through your city and decides to be generous. The caravan arrived at the outskirts of Cairo in July of 1324. They camped for 3 days by the pyramids of Giza, a detail so cinematic it almost seems invented. Before crossing the Nile into the city proper on the 19th of July, Cairo was one of the largest cities in the world at that time, a population of approximately 1 million people. It had seen powerful visitors before. It had never seen anything like this. The Mamluk Sultan of Egypt, Al-Nasir Muhammad, sent word inviting Musa for a formal royal audience. Musa declined. He was on a pilgrimage. He had not come to conduct diplomacy. He had come to pass through on his way to Allah. The Sultan's envoys persisted. Musa resisted. Eventually, after considerable diplomatic pressure, he agreed to a meeting. But he refused to perform the traditional greeting of kissing the ground before the Sultan. To Musa, a man bowed only before Allah. The meeting was tense. Then it settled. And then Musa did what Musa did everywhere he went. He gave. Every court official received a gift of gold. Every holder of a royal office, a load of gold. Every poor person he encountered in the streets of Cairo, gold. Arab historian Shihab al-Umari, who visited Cairo 12 years later, recorded what had happened in precise terms. Musa flooded Cairo with his generosity. He left no one in the court without receiving gold. They spent gold until they depressed its value and caused its price to fall. The math is straightforward. Gold is valuable because it is scarce. When an emperor walks through your city and hands it to everyone he meets, it is no longer scarce. The value of gold in Cairo's markets dropped dramatically. Merchants who had gold reserves suddenly found those reserves worth considerably less. Contracts priced in gold became economically unstable. Prices for other goods adjusted in response, creating a cascade of disruption that moved through every level of the Egyptian economy. It took 12 years to recover. 12 years from a man's 3-month stay on his way to prayer. And here is the detail that makes this story almost impossible to comprehend. Musa ran out of money before he got home. He'd given away so much gold, spent so much on goods and gifts, that on a return journey, he had to borrow from Egyptian merchants at high interest rates. The richest man in the history of the world broke, temporarily, but broke. He completed the Hajj. He prayed at the holiest site in Islam as he had always intended. And on the journey, something shifted in him. He had seen the great cities of the Islamic world: Cairo, Medina, Mecca, cities of learning, cities of architecture, cities where scholarship and culture and faith existed together in extraordinary harmony. He wanted that from Mali. He returned home with something more valuable than the gold he had given away. He returned with architects. Specifically, he brought back a Spanish Andalusian architect named Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, who had never seen West Africa and was about to change its skyline forever. In Timbuktu, al-Sahili designed the Jingurbur Mosque, a building of such extraordinary quality that it still stands today, 700 years later, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Musa also commissioned the Sankore Mosque, which would become the center of the University of Sankore, one of the largest universities in the medieval world. At its peak, Timbuktu had 25,000 students. 25,000 in a city in West Africa in the 14th century. While Europe was burning books and executing scholars, Timbuktu was accumulating a library of over 1 million manuscripts. Medicine, mathematics, astronomy, history, philosophy, Islamic theology. The greatest intellectual repository in sub-Saharan Africa, built by a man who just wanted to pray in Mecca and brought home an architect. And the world finally noticed. In 1375, 50 years after Musa's pilgrimage, a Spanish cartographer named Abraham Cresques completed what is now called the Catalan Atlas, one of the most important maps in the history of cartography. In the center of the African continent, sitting on a golden throne, wearing a crown, holding a golden scepter in one hand and a nugget of solid gold in the other, was Mansa Musa, depicted not as a curiosity, but as the dominant figure of the African continent. The image spread across Europe, and Europe, exhausted, plague-ridden, economically desperate, looked at that image and felt something it had not felt in a long time: hunger. If there was a man this wealthy south of the Sahara, then there was gold south of the Sahara. And if there was gold, there was a reason to find a way to get it. Historians have drawn a direct line between the image of Mansa Musa in the Catalan Atlas and the European age of exploration that began less than a century later. The Portuguese expeditions down the African coast, the Spanish voyages across the Atlantic, the obsessive European search for the source of African gold, all of it accelerated by a single image of a man on a throne, holding a nugget of gold in a map made in Spain in 1375. The richest man in history did not just crash Cairo's economy. His existence, his pilgrimage, his generosity, his desire to pray in Mecca changed the direction of European exploration, changed the map of the world, for better and for worse. Mansa Musa died in approximately 1337. He left behind the largest empire in Africa, the wealthiest city of learning in the medieval world, mosques that still stand today, manuscripts that are still being translated, and the global economy he had disrupted simply by being generous. He's on no banknote. He has no national holiday in the countries that were once his empire. For most of Western history, he did not exist. He was the footnote in someone else's story, the man on the map that Europeans used to justify their expeditions. But here is what the map actually shows. While Europe was in the dark, there was a civilization on the other side of the Sahara so advanced, so wealthy, so intellectually extraordinary, that its emperor could walk through Cairo giving away gold to strangers and still be the richest person who ever lived. The history you were taught had a gap in it. His name was Mansa Musa, and he deserves to be in every history book that has ever been printed. Subscribe to Historva, because the most important stories are the ones that were never told to you.